The Creel Dominion had always believed that victory should be swift and glorious. Their warships, elegant in form and unmatched in speed, surged through the stars like spears. Their empire had expanded rapidly over the last decade, and few dared challenge them. Until now, they believed, not even the humans would. Orbiting a quiet planet on the edge of neutral space, the human outpost, known as Relay Station 17, floated peacefully above a world of ice and rock. It was not a military base. It held no major defense fleet. Its primary function was scientific observation and long-range communication support. To the Creel, it looked like an easy win, a symbol of human overreach, a prize to be claimed. War Prince Threx stood at the command center of the Dominion battlecruiser Valeth, staring down at the station through the ship's viewing panel. His violet robes shimmered with the light of distant stars, the golden crests, of victory freshly etched into his shoulder guard. Minimal shielding, no orbital weapons, estimated defense response time 3 minutes, reported First Officer Narration, her voice cool and professional. Threx smirked. Send in the strike wing. No energy weapons, disable only. I want the station taken, not destroyed. Glory is earned through conquest, not debris. The Creel attack was sudden and precise. Dozens of sleek assault shuttles launched from the Veleth and its sister ships, cutting through space like blades. Within minutes, the station's outer defenses were breached. Human personnel, caught off guard, scrambled to respond. A few managed to fire back, but it was no use. The Creel were too fast, too well prepared. By the time Threx walked through the halls of the outpost, accompanied by a full honor guard, the battle was over. Human crew members, dazed and injured, were being escorted to containment. Some stared, defiantly. Others simply looked tired. Threx stepped into what had once been the station's command room. Burn marks streaked the walls. A flickering screen still displayed Earth's standard star map. He looked around and nodded in approval. Leave the systems intact. I want to study their layout. There is much we can learn from how they operate. Narration stepped beside him, offering a small data slate. 15 captured, 7 confirmed deceased, no signs of significant resistance. They were clearly not expecting us. Of course they weren't, Threx said. They've become too comfortable. They've forgotten that the galaxy rewards strength. But even as he spoke, a low chime echoed from one of the human consoles still active in the corner of the room. A Creel technician approached it, frowning. There's a signal log here. One of the crew activated a distress call. How long did it run? Threx asked, without concern. Approximately 13 minutes before we severed the line. Threx waved a dismissive hand. Let them know. Let them see what happens to those who build beyond their limits. Narration hesitated. There is a possibility Earth received it. We are close enough that they will understand the lesson. Threx interrupted. No response will come. Not for a station this small, not for a few missing crew members. He turned and looked back out the observation window at the distant stars. This is our frontier now. But far behind the confident tone and polished armor, one Creel officer, the youngest among them, Orcs, stood silently near the back of the room. His eyes remained fixed on the terminal where the signal had pulsed for those brief 13 minutes. He had studied human history, not the reports approved by the Dominion, but old files, unfiltered accounts. He had read about cities that rose from ruin, about ships built in silence after wars they had once lost, about people who did not always speak first, but remembered everything. And as he watched the stars beyond the outpost shimmer quietly, Orcs wondered if they had just sent a message not of dominance, but of invitation. One Earth would never ignore. Orcs stood quietly at the edge of the now Creel-controlled command room. The walls still bore scorch marks. The air still smelled faintly of plasma and burned metal. Yet the true discomfort clung to the silence that followed the initial conquest, an uneasy quiet that only those paying attention could feel. Threx was in high spirits. The War Prince had turned the station into a propaganda centerpiece, broadcasting carefully curated images of Creel soldiers patrolling the corridors, distributing supplies, and offering medical treatment to surviving humans. All designed to show the Dominion as powerful, yet merciful. But Jorix kept thinking about the signal. The 13-minute transmission wasn't long. It had no complex code, no tactical data, just a repeating pulse, unmistakably human in structure, beamed toward the direction of Earth-controlled space. Most of the officers believed it was too short to matter. Jorix wasn't so sure. Later that day, he quietly entered the station's communications hub. Most of the human equipment had been disabled or removed, but he found the backup log still intact. The last message showed up clearly on the screen. Priority distress. Outpost 17 under siege. Enemy unknown. Coordinates attached. Civilian researchers. Present. Immediate support requested. A simple call. Clear. Direct, and now it was out there. Jorix transferred the file to his private console, hoping to analyze the signal further. He wasn't planning to raise an alarm, just to understand. The humans, in all their perceived simplicity, didn't make threats often. When they asked for help, they meant it. When they responded, they committed. Across the station, things were settling into routine. Creel engineers rewired human consoles. Creel scientists cataloged equipment and technology. Every corner of the outpost now flew the Dominion's mark. Still, strange reports started coming in. A supply ship scheduled to arrive from a nearby Creel system failed to report in. The Dominion's Central Command dismissed it as a mechanical issue. Then a second ship vanished, this time en route to deliver replacement parts. No debris, no distress call, just silence. Threx received the updates without concern. "We are on the edge of a new frontier," he told his officers at the morning briefing. "There will be interruptions. Earth is stretched thin. They will not risk conflict over one small outpost. This is ours now." The officers nodded, most without question. But Narration raised a brow. "I recommend activating deep-range sensors, just to be sure." Threx chuckled, the sound smooth and confident. "If it eases your mind, then do so. But you'll see, nothing is coming." Meanwhile, among the human prisoners, whispers began to circulate. Kept in a sealed section of the station, they had been treated with indifferent formality. They were fed, given medical aid, interrogated gently, but frequently. One of them, a communications specialist named Arden Vale, remained calm during every session. He spoke little, answered only what he needed to, but one phrase kept repeating in the logs: "You didn't stop. The message." A Creel officer once asked him what that meant. Arden just smiled. "They heard it. That's all that matters." The officer scoffed and left it at that. Jorix, however, heard the words and felt a chill. He returned again to the console late that evening, rerunning simulations of how far the signal could have gone in those 13 minutes. It wasn't much, but it was enough. He calculated possible interception points, human listening posts, patrol routes, relay satellites. In every version, there was at least a 10% chance the message reached someone who mattered. 10% didn't sound like much. But Jorix knew enough about humans to understand. They didn't need high odds, just opportunity. He closed the simulation and backed away from the console. For the first time since the so-called victory, he wondered not if Earth would come, but when. The months stretched on, slow and heavy, as the Creel Dominion settled into what they considered a new normal. The human outpost, now renamed Creel Base Vareth, was no longer a symbol of challenge but a trophy to boast about. Supplies flowed in, repairs were completed, and patrols grew more confident. Prince Threx held a triumphant aura. His victory was unchallenged. Earth, as far as anyone in the Dominion knew, remained silent. Yet beneath the surface, tension grew, quiet shadow that crept unnoticed through the halls and the stars. Jorix watched from his quarters on the Valeth, uneasy as he observed the increasing irregularities in the outer systems. Supply ships bound for Vareth failed to check in more frequently. Their disappearances were swift and unexplained. The Dominion's intelligence network reported no signs of enemy activity, no distress calls, no debris fields. Just empty space. Where ships had been, mechanical failure, declared Commander Narration firmly during a strategy meeting. The Creel fleets are pushed to their limits. These things happen. Threx nodded but said little. Still, the Creel knew better than to ignore strange patterns. The Dominion had survived through centuries by respecting the unknown, by preparing for threats others might overlook. One afternoon, Jorix joined Narration in the sensor room. The arrays scanned deep space with increased sensitivity, hunting for signs of human fleets. But all the data was silent, except for one strange anomaly, a faint pulse on the edge of their detection range, far weaker than any known ship signature. "What is that?" Jorix asked, pointing at the fluctuating blip. "Could be a sensor." "Glitch," Narration replied, brows furrowed. "Or something small, maybe an unmanned probe." Jorix shook his head. "If it's a probe, it's out here for a reason. Testing us." Neither wanted to admit it aloud, but they both felt the uneasy possibility. Earth might be watching, quietly gathering information, waiting for the right moment. Back on Creel base Vareth, human prisoners remained calm, their eyes always watchful. Arden Vale, the communications expert, had been moved to a less secure area for medical observation after reporting a minor illness. But even confined, he refused to break. One evening, as a Creel guard checked on the prisoners, Arden spoke. Softly, "You think Earth will forget this place?" The guard sneered. "Forget? No. They don't care about one outpost." Arden's gaze was steady. "Then why are your ships disappearing? Why does your leader hesitate?" The guard paused, the question lingering longer than expected. On the Valeth. Threx grew restless. The ease of conquest had lulled many into complacency, but his instincts were sharper. He summoned his officers. "We took what we wanted easily," he said, "but victory is only the beginning. We must prepare. Earth silence does not mean weakness." Narration proposed increasing patrols, tightening security, and sending a fleet to scout deeper human space. Threx agreed, but beneath his confidence was a silent worry. They had underestimated humans once. Would they do it again? Jorix remained silent. During the meeting, but later reflected on a human phrase he had read during his studies. The calm before the storm. He knew that waiting was never passive. It was preparation. The humans had time, patience, and resolve. As night fell over, the cold world below, Jorix looked out toward the stars and whispered to himself, "They heard us. Now they are coming." The calm shattered without warning. The first sign was a flicker on the deep space scanners, an unidentifiable blip moving faster than any known Creel vessel. It appeared suddenly on the edge of the sensor range, then disappeared, leaving a growing ripple of unease among the fleet commanders. Then the dark ships emerged from faster-than-light travel. No announcements, no signals, no messages. Just silence. The Creel fleet, which had been patrolling the space around Creel base Vareth with confidence, scrambled to respond. But their weapon systems flickered and died under unseen interference. Communications jammed. Systems rebooted in confusion. Within minutes, the once proud Creel fleet was overwhelmed. No grand battle cries, no desperate last stands. Just swift, precise strikes that disabled engines and weapons without destroying. The ships. The human ships moved like shadows, striking with purpose and vanishing before retaliation could begin. Prince Threx watched from the Valith's bridge, shock and disbelief tightening his chest. "How is this possible?" he demanded. "How did they find us without warning? How did they disable our fleet so completely?" Narine's face was pale. "Their technology. It's unlike anything we've seen. They jam our signals and neutralize our weapons remotely. It's surgical." The silent ships descended toward the planet, dark and ominous. No markings, no flags, no call signs. Just black hulls gliding through space like ghosts. On the planet's surface, Creel soldiers stood frozen. The confidence they had held for months now felt fragile. Suddenly, dropships erupted from the human vessels, touching down near the outpost with smooth precision. The ground forces that emerged were unlike any Creel had fought before. Clad in sleek exosuits that blended advanced armor with mobility, the humans moved with calm efficiency. Their helmets concealed their faces, their movements silent but purposeful. These were not the scattered survivors the Creel had expected. These were something else. As the first squads advanced, Creel resistance was quickly overwhelmed. The humans did not shout orders or rally cries. They communicated with quiet gestures, appearing almost as one mind working seamlessly together. The Creel soldiers fell back, confused and unnerved by the strange tactics. In the command room of the outpost, Ardenvale, still a prisoner but now moved to a guarded medical bay, watched the events unfold through a secure channel. His eyes were steady, his voice calm. "They came," he said simply. The Creel command was left scrambling, struggling to regroup as the humans pushed forward with relentless precision. Prince Threx clenched his fists. This was no ordinary response. No diplomatic mission, no mercy. This was war, and the humans had arrived on their terms. The humans who emerged from the shadowy ships were unlike anything the Creel had ever encountered. They did not boast or shout. They did not seek glory or ransom. Instead, they moved with an eerie calm, methodical, precise, and unstoppable. They called themselves the Butcher's Sons, a name whispered in Creel space long before anyone understood its meaning. Tales told of Earth's past conflicts, of warriors forged in the fire of hardship and survival. But no one believed those stories were still alive, or that such warriors could return now. Clad in advanced exoskeleton suits that shimmered faintly in the dim light, their movements were both fluid and purposeful. Their helmets hid their faces, but the Creel could feel their presence, cold, determined, and utterly focused. Prince Threx watched from the command deck of the Valith as the elite teams swept through the outpost. Every door they passed through, every corridor they entered, was secured quickly and without resistance. No reckless violence, no unnecessary fighting, only the efficient reclaiming of what was theirs. For the Creel soldiers still fighting, it felt like facing ghosts. The humans anticipated their moves, responded before attacks could be made, and dismantled defenses one by one. In a corner of the outpost's underground tunnels, Jorix observed the operation quietly. He had studied the Bay humans for years, read every fragment of history and every tactical report he could find. But what he saw now was beyond even his expectations. "They are not just soldiers," Jorix murmured to Narine as she joined him. "No," she agreed, eyes wide. "They are engineers, tacticians, survivors, all in one." The Butcher's Sons carried with them small, advanced AI drones, silent helpers that scouted ahead, disabled enemy devices, and patched communications in real time. These drones communicated with their human operators through neural links, allowing instantaneous reactions. One human operative paused briefly beside a Creel wounded on the floor. There was no word, no hostility, only a calm hand extended to offer medical aid. The wounded Creel blinked in surprise. The humans did not seek vengeance. They sought to end the conflict quickly, It was a war unlike any the Creel had prepared for. At the heart of the station, Arden Vale led a group of human survivors who had been hidden during the initial invasion. They watched as their rescuers moved steadily toward liberation. "They came for us," Arden said, voice low but clear. "They never forget. They don't forgive either. Not because they hate, but because they remember." Prince Threx realized the weight of that statement. As the last defensive positions fell, his forces were trapped, isolated, and overwhelmed. He activated the emergency command to call for reinforcements, but the response was silence. The humans had jammed all outgoing signals. The War Prince gritted his teeth. "This is no random counterattack. This is calculated. Precise. It's a message." Narine nodded grimly. "A message we will have to answer." Outside, the Butcher's sons regrouped briefly, preparing for the final phase of their operation, reclaiming the station's central systems and disabling the Dominion's presence. With every step, it became clearer that this was not just a rescue mission. It was the start of something far larger, something the Creel had not seen coming. Prince Threx paced the command deck of the Valeth, frustration mounting like a storm cloud. His attempts to communicate with his scattered forces met only silence. The humans had cut off every channel, communications jammed, transmissions scrambled, and sensors blinded. It was as if the outpost and its surrounding space had disappeared from the Dominion's network. The War Prince clenched his fists. "They don't just want the outpost. They want to erase us from this region." Narine stepped forward, her voice steady but grave. "They know us. Every system we use. Every weakness in our defenses. They adapted quickly because this is not their first encounter with Creel technology." Threx stared at her, disbelief flickering across his face. "How? We took this outpost in one swift strike." "They were caught off guard. Our victory was absolute, but not forgotten," Narine said softly. "We used human tech as a base for our systems here. Our weapons, our defenses, even our communications are built on adaptations of their designs. They understand our methods better than we do." The realization hit Threx like a blow. They had assumed their conquest was a simple prize, a symbol of dominance over a lesser foe. Instead, it was a beacon, an alarm. Far below, in the heart of the outpost, the human forces moved through the command center, overriding Dominion controls and systematically dismantling their hold. Jorix, now taken prisoner in the facilities, holding cells, watched the unfolding operation with a mixture of awe and dread. The humans did not speak much, but their actions were clear and deliberate. They disabled weapon systems without destruction, repaired critical infrastructure, and prepared the station for evacuation, all with ruthless efficiency. A sudden movement at the cell door caught Jorix's attention. Arden Vale appeared, flanked by two of the elite operatives. "You'll be free soon," Arden said calmly, "and you'll see why Earth doesn't forget." Jorix's mind raced. "Why? Why didn't they come before?" Arden smiled faintly. "They were watching, waiting, learning. They never come unprepared." Outside, the remaining Creel soldiers grew desperate. They launched a last-ditch assault on the central control room, hoping to reclaim lost ground. But every move was anticipated. The humans adapted instantly, shutting down power nodes and locking doors. "Retreat!" Threx ordered, his voice sharp. "Fall back to the evacuation points. We will regroup." But even as the order echoed, it was clear the Creel had lost control. In the quiet that followed, Jorix thought back to the warning he had ignored. The subtle signs, the signal that should have been a red flag. The human message from those 13 minutes during the siege had been a summons, a call to action. Now the Creel faced the consequences of dismissing it. Prince Threx, in a rare moment of silence, looked to the stars beyond the outpost's windows. "We assumed they would negotiate. We assumed they would hesitate. But these humans, they do not negotiate with shadows. They respond with certainty. Narration approached, voice low but firm. If we survive this, we must rethink everything we believe about strength, about strategy, about survival. Threx's eyes hardened. No. We must survive to ensure the Dominion is never so vulnerable again. But as the Creel prepared for their next move, the humans had already vanished into the shadows, leaving behind a silent warning. The outpost was theirs once more. But the war for the frontier had only just begun. Weeks passed since the humans reclaimed the outpost, and the Creel Dominion's forces had been pushed into retreat. The once bold war prince Threx now found himself confined to a temporary command post on a nearby moon, far from the cold halls of Vareth. The silence from Earth remained unsettling. Had the initial assault been a prelude, a warning shot? Or was it the opening move of something far greater? Jorix, now freed from his cell but still under guard, accompanied Arden Vale as they oversaw the repair and reactivation of the outpost's systems. The human communications specialist spoke quietly. "They want you to understand one thing," Arden said, glancing at Jorix. "We don't take what's ours lightly. But we don't forget who we are. Earth has scars from wars and losses, but it's made stronger by every trial." Jorix nodded slowly, the weight of the truth settling over him. The Creel had underestimated more than just human resolve. They had underestimated human history and human endurance. Back on the moon, Threx convened his remaining officers. "The humans may have reclaimed Vareth, but they have not defeated us. We adapt. We endure." Commander Narration, her eyes sharper than ever, countered. "They move through space with silence and precision. Their technology disrupts our systems. But we know our strengths, our numbers, our ships, our discipline." "Strength alone won't save us," Threx replied. "We must learn to fight like them, patient, calculated, and united." Outside, the stars glittered with distant promise and danger. Unknown to the Creel, human reconnaissance teams scouted the Dominion's supply lines, sabotaging where they could, avoiding detection. The galaxy was shifting. Jorix stood by the observation deck, watching a supply convoy pass beyond the planet's atmosphere. "Every action has a consequence," Arden said from behind him. "They thought taking the outpost would be an easy win. Instead, they lit a fire they can't control." Jorix turned. "Do you think Earth will come for more than just this outpost?" Arden's gaze was steady. "If the Dominion thinks this is over, they're wrong. Earth defends its own, and when pushed, it fights to the last star." The Creel had entered a new phase of the war, one where every move was shadowed by the fear of what might come next. Threx, far from the outpost but closer to his own fears, prepared for a conflict that would test the limits of his empire. The humans had returned stronger, faster, and smarter than he ever imagined, and in the quiet vastness of space, the question hung heavier than any weapon. Could the Creel survive? The storm they had awakened? The silence had ended. From the dark reaches of space, Earth's fleets arrived, not in overwhelming numbers but with unmistakable purpose. Ships bearing the emblem of humanity glided into orbit around Creel Base Vareth, their sleek forms a testament to countless generations of survival and adaptation. Prince Threx stood aboard the Valeth, staring out as the new arrivals positioned themselves like silent sentinels. The war he thought was won had transformed into something far more complex. A reckoning not just for control of a single outpost, but for the future of the frontier itself. The humans made no demands, no proclamations. Instead, they communicated. Clearly, Vareth was theirs to reclaim, and the Creel were to withdraw. Threx knew better than to believe it would end there. The War Prince raised his voice to his remaining commanders. "We have underestimated them. But the Dominion is not so easily broken. We will fight, not just for territory, but for our pride, our survival." The battle that followed was unlike any before. It was not a clash of brute force, but a test of strategy, patience, and will. The humans employed tactics learned from countless conflicts, blending technology with instinct and adaptability. They struck hard and retreated faster, never giving the Creel a moment's rest. Their drones infiltrated systems. Their soldiers moved with precision. Every engagement was a puzzle the Creel struggled to solve. In the midst of the chaos, Jorix found himself standing beside Arden Vale once more, watching the ebb and flow of the conflict. "Why do you fight so relentlessly?" Jorix asked. Arden's eyes were steady. "Because we remember. Because we protect not just land, but hope. Because when Earth calls, we answer, no matter the cost." The Creel realized, too, late, that conquering a human outpost was not a prize, but a warning. The humans who came were shaped by adversity, forged in resilience, and united by a deep-rooted refusal to surrender. As the conflict reached its peak, Prince Threx faced a choice: continue a war that bled resources and morale, or retreat and regroup, acknowledging that Earth was not a foe to dismiss lightly. With a heavy heart, he ordered a withdrawal. The Dominion forces pulled back under the cover of night, leaving Vareth's surface bathed once again in the light of human flags. Jorix watched the ships depart, knowing the war was far from over. But for the first time, he understood something vital. The strength of a people is not measured by the battles they win, but by the battles they refuse to lose. The humans had returned for their own reasons, not just to reclaim a lost outpost, but to protect a future built on hope and resilience. And as the stars shimmered above, one truth stood clear: Earth never forgets, and those who challenge it do so at their own peril.